In part 2 of Wiener Pixels, I will intersperse scenes of beautiful architecture in Vienna with my continued search for the composers. Here is the beautiful Austrian Parliament building, modeled on Greek architecture. In front, a statue of the Greek goddess of wisdom, Athena. Hope it helps. This is the last house that Haydn lived in, at a time when, after Mozart's death and before Beethoven's advent, he was the most famous composer in the world, about 1793. At the time, it was out in the countryside, and people had to travel a long way to visit him, which they did. Haydn moved as a young boy to Vienna because it was already a musical center. He was so poor that he made sure to sing in choruses that offered free food. He was the first great composer in Vienna, and when the young Mozart moved there in 1781 to work with him and collaborate, it changed the fates of music forever. It was a unique collaboration. Mozart said he learned everything he knew from Papa Haydn, and after Mozart's death, one could not mention the name of Mozart to Haydn without him bursting out into tears. In the Haydn house, I learned something I had not known. Perhaps some of you have sung in many of Haydn's wonderful canons. These frames hold 50 of his handwritten canons. They were his most prized possessions. He framed them and would not allow them to be published until after his death. I had great difficulty finding the Haydn Church and this statue in front of it, even though it's on one of the major streets. 3 blocks away, I had to get a policeman to look it up on his cell phone, and he responded, "Oh, we know that by another name." Returning to architecture, here is the Volkstheater, or People's Theater, and here is the High Theater. Right across from the High Theater, we have City Hall, and in a close-up you can see there is a man on top of it, I believe the highest point in Vienna. Here it is from the front with a movie screen in front of it. The next composer I sought out was the last great composer to live in Vienna. Despite objections from Mahler fans, it was Johannes Brahms. All of the places where Brahms lived have been destroyed, so there is only a small corner of the Haydn house dedicated to him, where you see not a lot, a few artifacts, and the dining set where he threw his lavish dinner parties. Here in Wrestler Park we see a not uncommon sight, a beautiful church being defaced by a rock concert, but with all those people around, Brahms' statue, I had to look for it, and there was no one there. In statuary, as in life, Brahms towered over everyone, but was isolated. You can tell exactly what Brahms is thinking, though, in this video, as he's forced to endure a rock concert. He's thinking, I would love to just get up and walk away from this noise, but I can't because I'm a statue. But then he remembered Mozart's Don Giovanni. If the Commendatore had done it, why couldn't he? The next day, the statue was reported missing. I took a wrong turn and wandered into what for Vienna is a back alley and discovered an intriguing fountain and statue. It was all in Russian, and the guy on top was wearing a machine gun. It's a monument built in 1945 to the brave Soviet soldiers who died liberating Vienna. It was built by the Soviets, of course, but you won't find anything like it anywhere else in Europe, certainly not in Germany. The Soviets withdrew from Austrian, and it became a neutral state where intelligence agencies on both sides could have a free hand. So the Austrians did not tear it down, and Putin recently held an important ceremony in front of this monument. I had seen 2 of Mozart houses in Salzburg, and besides, his very presence seems to walk the streets in Vienna, so the next composer I looked at was Beethoven. It's difficult to locate a residence for Beethoven. He lived in over 70 of them. He wasn't a very good tenant. Landlord to Beethoven. You can't knock holes in my walls just because you want to see trees. Beethoven. I can, I will, and I did. Pasqualotti liked him though, and he returned there several times. First of all, you have to walk up a hill to even get to Beethoven Street. Then you have to walk up 4 flights of stairs to even get to a small apartment. Inside you see his piano with its 5 pedals, which is an interesting story. And here's a view from the window. That's the university across the street. And that's a section of the Ring Highway. Here's a close-up of one building at the university. The street is called Milker Bastei, or Bastion, and that's a section of the wall that is still left that was not torn down when building the Ring Street. Here is the Schwarzen Kamel, or Black Camel, where Beethoven used to eat. When he was too busy composing to go for lunch, he sent away and asked for, quote, some of your best coffee, without which I cannot possibly compose. That's an important statement. Here is the Theater an der Wien, still a functioning theater. Here's how it looked in Beethoven's day. It was owned, I believe, by Emanuel Schikaneder, and if I'm not mistaken, both Mozart's Magic Flute and Beethoven's Fidelio premiered there. Right in front of it are stars for Schikaneder, Mozart, and of course, Beethoven. This is the Palast Hotel Schunbrunn. The Habsburg used to put up their guest when visiting the nearby Schunbrunn Palace. Today it's a fancy hotel. Thomas Edison stayed here in 1911 when he was called in to electrify the entire Schunbrunn complex. A few more buildings. That's Gutenberg, inventor of the printing press, in front of this one. Field Marshal Radetzky. And the Arnold Schoenberg Center. I'm amazed it's still standing. We won't use any of his music, though. Next we visit the birthplace of Franz Schubert. Oh, sorry, that's Schunbrunn, the Habsburgs. Here is the birthplace of Franz Schubert on Nussdorfer Strasse, a poor area then and now. If you look at the next picture, it looks like they had a fairly large place, but it was divided into 14 apartments and over 70 people lived there. They were indeed poor. The museum is also poor. They have his piano, his guitar, his spectacles, but not much else. This is the Schubert Garage on Säulengasse. It used to be a home of Schubert. It's now a functioning garage, but they at least named it after him. However, there is a part of the ring called the Schubert Ring. Before ending, I must comment on how much I admired the Viennese system of transportation, especially around the ring. Here we see a pedestrian lane, bicycle lane, parking lane, car lane, and streetcar lane, and that's just on one side of the street. Unlike major cities where bicycle lanes suddenly disappear into car lanes and the cyclist is at risk, bicycles and pedestrians often have separate pathways with their own lights. It's an efficient system, but if you violate it, they'll run you right over, or maybe even send the Lippenzahners after you. There's only one place to end this visit to Vienna, though, the Central Cemetery outside of town, and their honorary burial grounds for the musicians. There is an outer circle for people like von Suppé, Herbeck, Hugo Wolf, Johann Strauss Sr. And they're the second circle there because the inner circle is from left to right, Beethoven. In the middle, Mozart, Schubert, Johann Strauss Jr., of course, and Johannes Brahms. I tried to embrace them all, but it somewhat exceeded my grasp.